We launched our Tasty Bot, which is an AI, it's a way to search our site, and rather than go through kind of the traditional email route or support route or call some toll-free number, you can just go to, our Tasty Bot and ask any question you want. And basically we have...
It's a virtualized customer service, at least a layer of customer service.
Well, we've essentially fed it everything that anybody ever wanted to know about Tasty, including from our research, all the way down to account opening, to questions on products. You name it, every single bit of content and data and every paper we ever wrote, everything, we basically fed it into the bot and or fed it into the machine learning software, and now we have this kind of pretty cool AI bot. Anyway, the question came down, what does this mean for companies like us or any other company? What's going to happen? What does the future of job creation look like in a world that's powered by AI? I think that's kind of the cleanest.
It's a profound and critically important question, and I'm very excited to discuss the matter. I think your Tasty anecdote is good. I also think the port strike is a great sort of canary in the coal mine, in the sense of the automation of the Asian ports, the resistance to automation of the American ports, and the resistance to that. I know that's not AI explicitly, but it's the same principle, which is if the robots can do things, what happens to the people?
Yeah, but how ridiculous is it to even think that you can hold off technology? And how?
It's absurd. I think that
of course.
If anything, so can I just tell you? Can I cut to the meat of this real quick, because I've got a real clear shot on this.
Okay, go ahead.
And
I have my own personal stories about this too, which I want to just kind of weave in here. But go ahead.
And it's not to rush through it, but I do think that on this one, you and I are going to largely agree. Stopping technology to protect jobs is a misguided and losing proposition, and it's bad for everybody at the end.
100%. 100%.
So come on, okay?
Yeah, that's easy.
But here's what I'm interested in discussing from my perspective. So protecting the jobs is idiotic, full stop. But protecting the workers is essential. And so I think that where we get tripped up is we think to ourselves, well, the only possible way to respect or care for the labor force, whatever the labor force may be, whether it's at a port or in customer service or in marketing and whatever the threatened to do at the auto plant, with the factory, whatever it is, that protecting old jobs, which would be the ultimate, would be like protecting the whale fishermen who make the whale oil for the electricity, or protecting the horse and buggy, obviously. But I do think there's a massive I think it is in our collective self-interest to protect the workers. And I think that there's an interesting discussion to be had based on what does this phrase protect the workers mean? Because obviously that can be interpreted as, just give them a bunch of money and leave them alone. And that's obviously not going to work. And other can be interpreted as invest in their re-education and help them get a different job, which sometimes is great and sometimes is completely insane and unreasonable. So anyway, I'm interested to talk to you about that little bifurcation on separating protecting the jobs from protecting protecting the workers, because I believe that's the fundamental political, social challenge of the next 30 years.
Okay, I'm not disagreeing.
So my question to you is, how would you protect the workers?
Okay.
We're going to agree on a lot of this, but when you get into the weeds, how do you go about how do you not take the economy hostage to protect obsolete jobs, and at the same time not annihilate the stability and basic security and opportunity for tens or even 100 million human beings all at the same time?
Understood. So I am a free market capitalist, and what you are kind of walking on the edges here is around a system that I don't necessarily believe in, and I'll explain.
Well, you're assuming a specific path. I'll protect the workers any way you want.
I'm assuming I've already lost you to a European mentality, which I'm trying to avoid getting myself in trouble here.
But this could be UBI. This could be a tax on the AI.
I understand.
Tax the robots. Tax
So-
the robots. How about that?
So
tax the robots.
In
robot
1998, in 1998 and 1999, I'm standing in the S&P 100 pit, and with another 400 or 500 guys, and mostly screaming my lungs out because that's what I'd done for the previous 18 years. And there's some upstart exchange that's about to hit, that's opening their stores, that is going to not have a trading floor. They're actually going to do everything electronically, and they're going to introduce technology where we had always done things by open outcry. And, this is 25 years before now, so it's 25 years ago. And the exchange, the Chicago exchange, took the position that A, nobody's going to use that exchange. B, the firms that have always done business, they're going to continue to do business the way they've always done business, and they're not going to change the way they facilitate orders and execute orders and negotiate orders and all that stuff. And nobody is going to use a fully electronic exchange because, the relationships that we have are far too valuable. That was the story they said. Within 6 months, we lost 40% of market share.
The volume on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange was actually faster than that. I was on the floor in the transition.
But in the option world, derivatives world, we lost 40% of market share within 6 months. Within a year, we lost 60% of market share. The writing was on the wall the whole time for me because I never believed that I never believed you could hold back technology. Now, the exchange, as much as it was a member exchange, so as much as they would have loved to have a way to protect the members and protect their franchises, they obviously couldn't. And what happened after that is they reinvented themselves, but the members were all out. The exchange went on to become
lives on,
not only did it live on, it became worth
got bigger.
10x, 20x, 50x of what it was worth 25 years ago. 25 years ago it was $1 billion exchange. Now it's a $25 billion exchange. So the move to technology and not trying to protect the inefficiency of doing everything manually was the right move. The point I'm making here is I lived through this, and I left at that point because I realized that I didn't want to be a dinosaur and I didn't want to get swept out, with the garbage. This is the same situation that's happening right now. It's not reversible.
No, I disagree. Can I just intervene? Can I just tell you why it's a little different? I just because I think I don't want to go. I like where you're going and I agree with what you're saying, but I just want you to integrate a little bit of nuance and a distinction between the story you described and the one we're in right now, as I perceive it. Although I think the metaphor has merit, and it is only that the number that the volume of jobs in this next transition is so big that it represents it is a bigger challenge purely because of the scale. Anyway, I'll let you continue, but I would say that this is a larger scale.
I don't agree with you. I think that's a little bit ridiculous because the volume of manufacturing jobs that we have lost over the last few decades, just the pace of those jobs going away is accelerating, but you can't. It's undeniable.
The acceleration of that pace is critical.
Okay.
Right. The accelerated pace is essential. But anyway, I'll
agreed to everything. It doesn't matter. We don't have to fight over the little nuances. Right. My point is that we don't have an obligation. We have an obligation to explain to the workers what is happening and why. That's where the obligation is. We do not have an obligation to protect workers. See, that's where I differ from you. I don't feel like we have an obligation to protect workers. I feel like we have an obligation to explain what is happening and then to let people, because it's a free market, you decide what do you I'm very happy as an employer. I'd be happy to pay for whatever we needed to if it came down to training or if it came down to,
But that's a worker protection. You're contradicting yourself, right?
I'm not contradicting myself because
but it's a little bit you are. I'm saying that you're saying as an CEO, I care about my employees and I would invest in helping them if it was a logical thing that I could do.
I think
which I would say is worker protection.
I think explaining what is happening is the most important thing, so people can decide, what they want to do and what they need to do next to protect themselves. I don't think in a true free market we have an obligation, to do that as employers. You can only do so much, and I think there's also some responsibility has to be borne by the workers themselves. Like I said, I realized at some point, hey, I was a dinosaur, and right now.
So, but I get that, but that's why I think the scale matters. Which is again, obviously, there's a million stories of people that have made transitions
of course,
and saw the writing on the
there's
wall.
Millions and millions and millions.
But if I'm going to fire all of the port workers in 1 week,
but you're not going to fire all the port workers in 1 week. That's not what this is coming down to. That's not the question.
Or I'm going to fire the entire editorial and marketing staff of every Fortune 500 company in 1 week. And I'm being extreme, obviously, with examples.
But none of those things, but those are not real examples. That's not what's happening.
The rate at which those jobs are at risk is changing at the highest it ever has. And the more they resist it, I guess I don't even want to. Why would you not be in favor of a robot tax? Why do you want one person to have all the money? But because the other thing I take issue with is your idea that this is free market capitalism, which is a misrepresentation of what this is, because what this actually is a corrupted kleptocracy where a few billionaires control the government and all of the policies, and they have all of the money.
You're assuming that AI can do things. It doesn't have emotional capabilities. There's no personal side to it. It doesn't, we can't even figure out
why
how to
give the single inventor of the robots $1 trillion? Why allow? How is that? Why have three people each with $1 trillion and then 200 million people with $10 when you could tax the owner of the robots? I understand providing rewards to the.
I just don't understand what you're talking about. That's not how this stuff works. That's not how the system works.
That's how it's worked so far. Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Elon. You have a few people with preposterous wealth. Not because they're the smartest or the best ever, even by their own admission, but because they were very talented and very good, but also very lucky and in the right place at the right time, and happened to be. It wasn't MySpace or it wasn't whatever. The alternative was. It was one thing.
They made the right decisions in the right economic cycle at the right time in history. And they all
and so that they should be allowed to have a monopoly forever, and everybody else should get nothing because they did that.
No, but that wasn't the topic we were talking about. I mean, that's not.
But I'm saying that's the risk. I'm saying, why would you not tax the robots? Why should there not be a robot tax?
Yeah, but we're talking about AI, not really robots.
AI is a robot.
Not really.
Absolutely, yes, really.
I'm not seeing the same thing.
How about we tax AI?
Tax it.
AI pays taxes for its work and its value. I mean, anyway,
why don't you just fix the tax code and you tax AI where AI is successful based on the corporate profits? So I don't understand, how do you something?
No problem.
Fine.
No problem.
Then you tax the success of the companies. The problem is right now is not that you don't need to tax AI. You need to tax Meta. You don't need to tax.
Sure.
You don't need to tax AI. You need to tax Microsoft, sure. and that solves your problem. But I don't understand I don't understand.
I guess what I'm getting at is to the degree to which the technology displaces large pieces of the workforce, that taxing that technology or the value from that technology in a way that then provides transitional resources to the workers who are displaced strikes me as a rational thought.
Yeah, but you're never going to be able to tell who's displaced for what purpose, and I think what's ultimately going to happen is what always happens, and that the workforce transitions. And so listen, for the most part, AI is not going to displace any kind of manufacturing, very little on the manufacturing side, very little on the unskilled labor side or anything like that. It's not even going to apply to that. It's almost all going to be some white collar roles that have become incredibly bloated and that can easily be replaced with software. And I don't even think it's that nearly as big a market share as people think it is.
Yeah, I don't disagree with all of that. Although I just think when the rate of change is super high, it just depends on the velocity. If you're not
so
rolling
the rate
over
of
too many
change for
jobs
everything now, the rate of change, gamma, which is the rate of change, is so fast for everything that the idea that we're going to slow that down, intentionally slow that down, is ridiculous.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting to acknowledge that gamma is at an all-time high, but human beings are not capable of extremely rapid change at scale because they're still human beings. And as such, there needs to be an awareness of the fact that gamma is at an all-time high, which is different than it was 1, 5, 10, 20 years ago, which then creates more risk to greater political instability and even violent actions by human beings who are gravely impacted in a negative way by the scaled gamma of the transition, and that you're better to avoid the civil unrest and violence that can be caused from such things by anticipating it and offering some transitional resources.
I'm not opposed to transitional resources, and I'm not opposed to education and things like that. But the idea that there's an obligation to, I just don't, I mean, if anybody is not seeing this and they think that there's a risk, then they should be doing something about it right now.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. It's just the scale, just the gamma and the scale that gives me some anxiety. Otherwise, I'd be like, I would be like, let it work itself out. But I just don't. It's like I can only have so much throughput at so much per hour, and if the throughput gets too high, I think that it just needs a different approach. And I'm concerned about the size of the throughput, basically.
You do agree that the rate of change is very positive for everybody.
Of course.
Because there's nothing worse than a slow rate of change, which takes generations to move the needle. Then you go back in time like it's. But I'm
not saying that. I'm saying the way that you drive a car that's going 200 miles an hour is with a different technique than the way that you drive a car that's going 20 miles an hour. And so to suggest that there's just one set of rules for driving a car at any speed means that when you drive it at 200 miles an hour, it's going to crash into a wall, blow up, and everybody inside will die. Whereas if you understand that there are different rules for operating a motor vehicle when it's moving at 200 miles per hour, in terms of how you brake, when you turn, and how you anticipate the road ahead, because it comes up on you much faster than when you're going 20 miles an hour. And that's my concern, combined with the fact that I have zero confidence in our political leadership on either side of the aisle.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. I just think that a violent rate of change is incredibly bullish for people that want change. It's like you can't have it both ways, is I guess my point. My point is you can't have it so that you don't want to introduce new technology, but on the other hand, you want a ton of opportunity. You can't have both.
But no one is suggesting that we want it both ways, right? We absolutely not suggesting that. I'm just suggesting we need to live in reality, which is rate of change is at an all-time high, while velocity, number of participants is at an all-time high, and that comes with unlimited opportunity in most exciting time in the history of the world, and also hugely dangerous on a social level if you do not acknowledge the risks in that transition and you leave huge percentages of the population out of the field of opportunity, which I believe is happening in a lot of parts of the world. And I believe that most of the solutions to solve for it are lousy from the politicians, because they tend towards a centralized government response, which is going to be horrible. Can I offer one other comment, just a different voice exists in the back of my head? And one of the venture capitalists, I don't know who it was, he's probably an asshole, excuse my language, but whatever, his argument was AI is going to make the cost of everything go down from $1. Everything that costs $1 now will cost a penny. And so you may having $1,000 or $10,000 will be the equivalent of having $100,000 or $1 million. after the AI transition. And so that the mitigating factor with AI, as he was arguing it, was not even so much about the jobs or the transition or the opportunity field, although I'm sure he would argue that that's intact, but that the integration of the AI, and even if you work less and you make less money because there's less work, whatever that means, that the cost of existence will collapse. The cost of a car, the cost of a house, the cost of a farm.
Yeah, I don't get that argument at all. I don't see it as, I don't think it's that transformational. And I don't see it. I don't see that. I can't even, I'm having trouble seeing it on any level right now. Like, I just don't see it.
Yeah. There's a lot of people, and I'm not even saying that I do see it. And that's why for me, I've transferred the discussion into a broader scope of beyond AI to just high rate of change, high rate of technological implementation, the absurdity of this port strike, because obviously we should automate the ports, obviously. I mean, what are we doing? But also, obviously, there are many workers at those ports who some investment, I believe, we have an obligation. This is where you and I differ, but I think there's a social obligation as a country to create some sort of an investment in the transitional support for those workers. So we're going to I would say, let's automate the port. Let's tax the port operations for the next 5 or 10 years on the use of those, on whatever the savings are, and make an educational or sort of pension early retirement, depending on the profile of the individual. I'm just saying that I think that those conversations have to occur. AI, no AI.
Yeah, I don't think modernizing ports and through the use of technology is necessarily an AI thing to start with. And so I think that this is just a normal progression of, we're just getting better.
But it brings up technological displacement. It still brings up the Paul Bunyan technological displacement.
It brings up the technological displacement of workers. Yes, absolutely. I'm not sure that we have, that's been the case for the last 100 years. It's just been a slow process. Now it's being accelerated, which, you keep talking about the rate of change. I couldn't agree more. And I've been using that discussion, rate of change, on everything. And I think that people are just going to have to get used to it. I'm not so sure that we have an obligation. If people don't see things changing around them, then that's a problem. But I'm not sure that, I feel like in the U.S., we see that quicker than anybody else in the world because we have more opportunity. And I just feel like, we're not letting the markets work for themselves, which is what we need to do, which is to basically say, hey, you know what? Here's what's happening. This stuff's going away. This stuff will stay, and let's just move forward. I mean, I don't know what else there. I don't think you can address every single person. I'm not trying to be cold about this. It's just that is what we're facing.
No question. But the consequence of mismanaging it, in my opinion, is catastrophic.
Really? I think the consequences.
Meaning, if you have alienated, if you have 80 million people without a job, they're going to get angry and go to violence.
Of course, if that was the case, but that's not going to be even close to the case.
But I'm saying that's the risk.
I don't think that is the risk. I think the risk is actually the other side of it. The risk is that you don't make the changes you need to, and you lose the business and destroy the economy. That's the risk. And so,
but two risks can exist at the same time.
Of course. But the real risk is always that you don't move forward. The real risk is never that you try to stay. But
I'm not suggesting anybody tries to stay. I'm saying you have to acknowledge you are moving forward. You can't not move forward, but moving forward you can't move forward recklessly. You need to move forward with self-awareness. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah, we're just going to have to agree to disagree on. I mean, we both think there's a problem.
It's like a guy who goes hiking and ignores the trail sign that says this is a very difficult trail. It's like, this will be no problem, and then all of a sudden gets halfway down the trail. Might be a problem.
No, that's not what that is. It's not even close. That's a horrible example.